So the reason you're all here today, why collecting data is useless if you're not effectively visualizing it.
So before we start, being
Yeah.
awkward, I probably have got a question. Why are we talking about data visualization today? Everything I'm seeing at the moment on LinkedIn and sort of trending is talking about data quality. It feels like we've skipped a subject and gone straight to visualization. Why have you decided to do that?
So I think data quality goes hand in hand with visualization, but I think it comes after. And I think that we still have a lot of businesses out there that need help visualizing their data and understanding understanding their data. Once you understand your data, then you can say, okay, now can I really get the best quality out of that? Do those data quality monitoring. So I think they're putting the cart before the horse if they're focusing so much on data quality and don't have effective visualizations in their business yet.
But if I can't trust the quality of the data, how do I trust the visualizations?
I think that's knowing your business, knowing your data. So there's a couple pieces there. If you see an anomaly in your data on your dashboards when you're visualizing it, is that really a signal that something's going on with my customers or my business, or is that a data quality issue? So that's one thing, knowing your data, knowing your business. The other one is you can set up cool little simple checks. So not this, elaborate data quality setup, but just a quick check. Hey, did my data get updated today? What's the last updated time of my data? So do some cool things with your dashboards so you can do a little bit of the data quality, but still focus on the visualization first.
That's actually a fair point and we'll get into introducing ourselves in a minute, but there's been a few times where I've looked at a great big spreadsheet and not known what was going on. And then it's not till it was visualized that I have noticed an error.
Exactly. Use those visualizations to also do some of that data quality. Exactly, James. So James, since I already threw your name out there, let's go ahead and tell us who you are.
Well, thank you very much. Obviously, I'm doing all the slides here, so I've put myself first in the most important position, although Adam is the intelligent technical one on the call. So my name's James. I'm over here in the UK. I've worked in marketing for 15 years, with about 5 in the tech sector for Microsoft Gold partners and various data warehousing. My job is basically to make the really complicated, cool things that Adam does simple enough for the non-techs to understand.
And I appreciate that, James. I do. So I'm Adam Jennings, Senior Solutions Architect, lifelong learner, working on multiple degrees all the time, always trying to learn something new. And I've spent the last handful of years helping customers move large amounts of data and analyze data. So creating those data pipelines, and that's what attracted me to DoubleCloud. So what is DoubleCloud? We're an end-to-end data analytics and managed open source solution, cloud agnostic, open source, for those speedy queries and those speedy analytics.
With a free data visualization tool, which is why we're talking about data visualization today. Let's not miss that bit.
All right, we won't miss that one. I won't let me miss that one.
So a good point to start then is, why is visualization so important? I mean, without sounding rude to our tool, is a bar chart and a line chart and a pie chart not all much of a much?
So visualizations are important for a lot of reasons. So as humans, we're visual creatures. So if we want to understand the data, like you said in the intro, looking at it in an Excel spreadsheet, and then but once you visualize it in some type of graph form, it just some of the patterns emerge and the trends. So you discover trends and patterns with data just by putting in a visualization tool. There's a famous data set out there, the Iowa liquor sales, and you can see, the tons of Kaggle and all different visualizations out there where you can see spikes on, either football season or, the Super Bowl's coming up here in the US. So, see liquor sales spike around those times. And so, you can kind of guess, that it'll be a spike, but with the visualizations, you can actually know how high that spike is. So you can predict a little bit better.
I see. And I'm just looking at your slide here. You're talking about compiling all the information into one place. We spend a lot of time, obviously, on our LinkedIn and other socials talking about data warehousing and now data marts, the decentralization of data. So how does that not fly in the face of, as you say, compiling it all into one place?
When I say compile it all into one place, we're talking about a line of business's needs. So if the marketing department needs this data, sure, they can have a data mart, and now your visualization tool can point at that data mart. And so you have a complete picture of what the line of business needs on one dashboard, or maybe a couple dashboards, depending how you work it. But it's not necessarily compiling all the entire business's data. It's the data that's needed for that particular line of business.
I see. And you also talk about retention of data. If I'm visualizing my data, do I still need to hold all of that data? So, for instance, as a marketer using LinkedIn as an example, if I've tracked engagement for the last 6 years, do I really need to save the last 4 years worth of data if it's now visualized on that chart?
So the way that most of the visualization tools work in the market is they access some type of underlying data structure to present the visualization. So they're not actually storing any data. So you still need to keep that data in some type of data warehouse, some type of storage. What we would recommend here, if you want to keep that historical data, is to either create some roll-up tables. If maybe you don't need such granular data for the older data, so you could create roll-up tables, delete some of the more granular data, keep some of those roll-up tables. Another way we could do with our platform is use a hybrid storage. So we would put some of that older data onto object storage, and that way you're paying object storage pricing instead of SSD storage pricing for that data. And the way that we do that with DoubleCloud is leverage the TTL statements so that at a certain time, that data automatically gets moved to object storage. And at that point, from the end user or the visualization tool standpoint, nothing changes. There's nothing that they need to do to query that older data. It's just seamlessly behind the scenes stored in object storage. So creates that better retention while keeping costs low.
I see. Well, I was going to say, it sounds like hybrid storage and S3 definitely sounds like something I should be talking to you about if I'm a CTO, but keeping us, maybe we can do that after the talk. Keeping us on point. Do you want to sort of run through some of the best practices for data visualization?
Sure. Let's flip the next slide then. So best practices for data visualization. When you're creating your dashboards, think about your audience. First and foremost, build the dashboards for their intended audiences. So in this case, I'm in America, James in the UK. We both read, upper left down to lower right on a page. And so think about object placement when you're doing that. And so for our audiences, we want to put the most important pieces in the upper left, because that's where your eyes are going to be drawn to. In this case, on this dashboard here, we have some of our filters in the upper left. That way people can see, oh yeah, those are the filters that I can use right away. And then right next to it are, our bookings count. So we want to know, how many nights were booked between those dates. So it gives us, a reference to start from when you start building your visualizations.
Okay. And where am I populating this data from?
So you can populate this data from various sources. Usually it's some type of tabular data or database data. This data set here sitting on our managed ClickHouse and DoubleCloud that we use for demo purposes. So when you spin up our visualization tool, there's even an option just to import demo workbook, and then this is what you get. So it's pretty slick. So if you want to play around with the visualization tool that way.
Okay.
So when you're building a dashboard, be clear with what you're trying to achieve. So don't overload with information. This one, depending on the audience, may have too many charts, right? Maybe I don't need every one of these on here, depending on my audience. But so know your audience. Again, that's number one. Know who you're targeting with your dashboards. Something else to think about, you see the night sum there in the middle. It has the K for thousands, right? So think about rounding numbers to a point where they're material, they have a material impact. So, if we don't really care too much, it doesn't change the business objectives or business strategy. If, we have 100 different, if it's a swing of 100 different nights, okay, so then maybe let's shorten that. So we get that information that is relevant and impactful for the business.
See.
I like to also, think about, choosing visualizations on here that are familiar to your audience. So you see a lot of numbers, a lot of bar charts, some line area charts. And tables are another good one because people recognize those. If you start getting fancy with your charts and you haven't educated your team on what those charts mean, some of the information may be lost. So it's good to always try to educate your audience on the chart types that will be being used.
And we've just had a question. I'm just going to interrupt you very quickly there. Apologies. But we've just had a question in from the audience while we're discussing best practices. When you are compiling a dashboard for your data, how do you handle missing or incomplete sort of data for your visualizations?
Yeah, so if you have missing data, I would, set some checks so that when you hit that missing data. If you have incomplete data, you should be able to see it depending on your chart. So, if I look at the price or the average price, and you see a dip where it says 0, okay, maybe what happened? Did my data feeds get messed up? And so that's when you can look into your data feeds. Another thing you could do, like I said in the intro, is have another tab, another section of your dashboard that says last data update time. And so if I know that it's supposed to be updated continuously or daily, and it says the last updated time was January 1st. Okay, something's been going on with my dashboards, and I hope I've figured it out before today. That something was wrong with the data.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Another good thing about when you're designing, dashboards is you think about the high data to ink ratio. So Edward Tufte, famous, for his visualizations and teaching those. More data, less ink. So no reason to put a bunch of decorative elements. It depends on your company culture. Maybe sometimes you want, the cute cat GIF or something, right? But like for the most of the time, you want more data, less, descriptors and things like that on there. The descriptors may be helpful the first few times you look at the visualization, but once you understand what those visualizations are, then they just become noise and more things your brain has to process when you're trying to quickly understand this information. Dashboards should be best if able to be understood at a glance.
Understood.
Something else on the slide that I want to talk about, be consistent across your dashboard. So use the same types of colors and the same type of elements and the same type of chart types that you are using if it's the same line of business. And that way it becomes repetitive for those business users that are reading those charts to understand, okay, this makes sense. If I saw a bar chart over here, I saw a bar chart over here, I can make sense in my brain of those. With our tool, and I think some of the other tools out there too, each of these elements can be taken and moved to a different dashboard. So you create it once, and now you can embed each of these elements in multiple dashboards. So that helps you make that consistency across your ecosystem.
And just doing a little plug for DoubleCloud here, you mentioned the word embedding. I understand we will be releasing an update soon so that actually our dashboards from the platform will be embeddable elsewhere.
Yeah, I think by the time this gets uploaded to YouTube or shortly after, we'll have the ability to embed them as iframes and other websites. So I think that I'm excited for that. That you don't have to go to our website or our console. People building the dashboards can do that, and they can take those and move those over to some other place that's common for their end users, so that they're not just navigating to yet another web page every day.
Well, in fact, if it's going to be that quickly, let me rephrase that. I understand you can embed these dashboards natively elsewhere, Adam. Is that correct?
Let's do it, James.
Brilliant. That sounds really interesting.
Cool. And the last thing I want to say on the slide, remember the people you're building these for. Like I started with that, and I'm going to end this slide with that. Understand who your end users are when you're building dashboards. Don't be afraid to break the rules. Like I said about the cat GIF or whatever else, or something fun that or colors that match your business, things like that. So don't be afraid to break the rules if you know your business users.
And just on that point, actually, we've just had another question in from the audience.
Yep,
it's being typed now. Give me a second. Oh, and is there an optimal color palette, and how should you decide on your color palettes when creating your visualizations?
Yep. So, avoid, a bunch of reds and greens getting contrast, and, that helps, our colorblind population. There are lots of websites out there that you can go to that'll show you, your best color palettes. So don't be afraid to do a little research before you choose a color palette if you don't already have something that's themed to your business. Does that make sense?
It does, thank you. And
Yep.
obviously you can change all the different color palettes on our platform quite easily, I understand.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, so so my next slide we'll talk a little bit more about how we can connect natively with our platform. So the last couple of slides have been more about just food for thought when you're creating your visualizations, you're creating your dashboards. Next couple of slides will be more DoubleCloud focused on how we connect and what we do with once we connect to that data. So these are the 7 different data sources that we can natively connect to with our visualization tool. The first one there is ClickHouse. Because we offer managed ClickHouse, it makes sense that we would also be able to natively connect to ClickHouse. But we don't have to connect to our ClickHouse. We can connect to ClickHouse on-prem or self-hosted, however you want to do that, as long as we have network access to that. The same thing with Postgres, that middle icon on the top there. It's not our Postgres, but if you have a Postgres instance that you need to connect to, that you want to use the same visualization tool, same free visualization tool, then go ahead and connect to Postgres. Same thing with MySQL on the upper right. The bottom left there is SQL Server. And then this next one is kind of cool. It is files. So if you want to upload a static CSV, comma separated value format or file, you can upload it and then play around with the visualization tool. So if you don't like our bookings demo to play around with it to understand the visualization, take your own data, upload it and play around with it. And we can help you build your data pipelines afterwards to get it into something like our managed ClickHouse so that you can, analyze it in real time. But maybe that file is a good opportunity to play around with the visualization tool.
So just to interrupt you there, we've had a couple of questions in. The first one is, it says here we can connect natively with all these different data sources. Are those the only data sources we can connect with then, or?
Yep, those are the only ones we can connect natively with. So if you want to connect to any other data source, we'd recommend, hey, using our transfer service to get the data into our managed ClickHouse, and then from there visualizing it there. And so we have ways of getting the data into the ClickHouse because of our managed transfer service. Most of it's based on open source Airbyte. And so you think about all the different connectors that we can leverage there. If we can't use Airbyte, we have managed Kafka as well. So if you have a way to stream data into Kafka, we can get that into ClickHouse natively, and then visualize it that way. So a couple extra steps. Yep.
And one last question. I'm
Yep.
assuming we've got some of our friends from Microsoft on the webinar. So if I've worked with you before, hello. But why should we be using DoubleCloud over Power BI?
Yeah. So our visualization tool, A, it's free. B, it's hosted in the same platform. And then another reason is, if you're learning a new visualization tool, we're not going to tell you to, use only our visualization tool, when it comes to DoubleCloud. If you're familiar with, Power BI or Tableau or another tool out there, use the JDBC connectors that, to connect to our managed ClickHouse, or if you're using our managed ClickHouse. So our managed ClickHouse is because it's based on open source, you can use whatever BI tool you want. Ours just happens to be free. Really, really matches well with our managed ClickHouse.
And just on that subject, I understand we've got some exciting news coming up about GCP. Maybe you want to tell everyone at the moment about it?
Yep. I think we're targeting GCP support for beta in Q2. So we'll add that cloud, and then we'll work on the Azure later this year. So really trying to be that cloud agnostic, manage data stack as a service.
Fantastic.
So the last two on this slide, Prometheus. So for your metrics, we dog food this, so we have a lot of our metrics delivered to Prometheus, and so then we turn around and visualize them in our visualization tool, so we can monitor what's going on in all of our customers' environments. And then the last one there is the BigQuery icon, which makes sense with the upcoming GCP release, that we could support visualizing data directly from BigQuery.
Thank you.
Yep. So since we're talking about BigQuery here, how how to connect to BigQuery with our DoubleCloud visualization. So basically, in this case, I'm creating a new workbook here. Give it a name. I'm going to give it a description of testing connectivity, I'm pretty sure. There it goes. And once I create that, I can click into it, and then bottom middle there, create connection. You see all the different connections I described there. BigQuery, I put in my project ID, and I put in my service account public key JSON file. And I can, forbid or allow raw SQL. I check my connection, it succeeds. So then I create my connection and give it a name. And now I have a base data connection that I can use to connect to my BigQuery, and then we'll build upon that to actually create the visualization. So we'll do it in a stepwise process, starting with the connection, then pulling in data sets, then building the components dashboard, and then at the end of the day, building the dashboard. This is the same across all of the different connections that we have. Some of them are a little different. For our managed ClickHouse, you'd want to put in the host name and username and password. Similar setup for all the other connection types.
So as I said at the beginning of this conversation, I'm probably one of the least technical people in this company, Adam, but that seemed far too simple to me. That was sort of click, 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 type, done. Is it really that easy?
It is really that easy. So, we even in our documentation list, how to get the JSON file from GCP to grab that service account key, so you can put it in. So a couple steps, and you have a connection to your BigQuery data.
Wow. And I've been told being able to visualize BigQuery natively within our platform is a pretty big deal for sort of data scientists and engineers.
Yeah, I think having a free tool that's UI driven makes it easy for people to think about using that data. I think no matter the source, I think just BigQuery is pretty hot right now. So I think it's good to have that connectivity.
Excellent.
So like I said, once you create that connection, then you build out a data set. And once you have a data set, then you start building your dashboards. And so you create charts. It's easy as selecting that data set that you've pulled in, and then dragging and dropping your dimensions and metrics that will be auto formatted as either a measure or dimension, and rename it and hit save. And now you have a new chart for your dashboard. And like I said earlier, these charts, they're separable from the actual dashboard. So you can take those same components and embed them in multiple dashboards. So if you build a really slick chart that you really like with the data you need that goes across different business units, create a second dashboard with the same thing, with same underlying data, without having to rebuild that chart.
Wow. And I mean, I'm assuming here, but a lot of our companies tend to be startups or slightly smaller, maybe. They don't necessarily all have data sort of engineers or developers on their team. I assume I need some kind of ridiculously intelligent tech to be able to put these dashboards together.
I would say no. As you can see on the slide here, everything's point and click, drag and drop. You may need some help, from your admins getting the security credentials for your data source. But once you have those credentials, I think everybody should be able to create dashboards. I'm a big fan of self-service dashboarding. I think it was 10 or 12 years ago, I was working in a biotech, and I wasn't really supposed to be doing dashboards, but I knew I needed it to drive business metrics for my team. I just created a whole bunch of Salesforce dashboards. So every time they logged into their Salesforce instance to do their daily job, the very first page they see is this dashboard of what they need to accomplish for the day. So I think everybody should be creating dashboards. Everybody should be using dashboards. It gives that quick glance of what's going on with the business as often as you need.
So to clarify, if I was running a marketing team or an accounting team or a product team, as long as there's access to my data has been all connected, I can just log in and create whatever dashboard I want, display whatever information I want, as long as it's in the data, and then go away and embed it in my own reports elsewhere to send on to who, that literally just with a few clicks. Is that what you're saying to me?
You have it exactly right, James. Exactly right.
This is the point, marketing and data visualization people, where you want to be signing up and testing out the tool for free, because that sounds amazing.
Awesome. So I know we only have a few minutes left. So just quickly over the DoubleCloud platform, I'll spend just a few seconds on this slide. I already talked about most of these services. So as the cloud agnostic, vendor independent, open source based, modern data stack, with DoubleCloud transfer, helping get data in, or manage Kafka to also, create those real-time stream processing, using managed ClickHouse for your data warehouse to store that data so you can quickly visualize it and create your analytics on top of our managed solution. Currently on AWS, launching on GCP soon, and Azure hopefully by the end of the year.
And I'm just going to put my marketing hat on here. There's a couple of sort of key buzzwords that we like to use a lot in our marketing, and I just want you to expand on them slightly for everyone here. First thing is, I understand a lot of this or all of this is open source. Is that correct?
That is correct. It is open source. We have a few proprietary on the DoubleCloud transfer and our visualization tools going through legal just to make sure we can open source the code. But yeah, at the end of the day, we want to be completely open source end to end.
Wow. And the big one of the big things that we obviously support with our data, managed data, and with our visualization is sub-second analytics, real-time data. Is that correct?
Yeah, because we could use the transfer service, because we have Kafka to really, get that data in quickly. And then ClickHouse, it's made for speed. So, if you need aggregated queries, check out ClickHouse. If you're not, for those of you that aren't familiar with ClickHouse on the webinar, go check it out. There's tons of cool videos out there. We have some good videos out there as well. It is blazingly fast. So sub-second is no joke when it comes to churning through trillion row data sets.
Excellent. And so the number of customers I've spoken to who have actually been surprised by, I've been surprised by how desperately they needed that native sort of visualization. They can just click a couple of buttons and it's there, rather than worrying about some off-the-shelf product that they have to pay quite a lot for.
Exactly.
Excellent.
So speaking of customers,
I was about to say, can we hear from a couple of customers? And there you have a slide prepared already.
How about that? So, I like this first one here. We created our data pipelines and analytics in a few days with zero involvement from our data engineers. It goes exactly what you were just saying, James, about, can I do this as a marketing person without the need, for our team? And like I said, once you have the credentials and you can access that source system, it's point and click, drag and drop.
Wow.
And go ahead.
I was going to say, well, Be Tested is another client of ours, and they help analyze games, what they call the fun aspect of the game, so how enjoyable a game is to play. To do that, they actually record gamers playing and then analyze every single frame of data. So they had a ridiculously large amount of data to analyze, but they also needed to do it in real time. And as you can see from their CTO, Juan, they were incredibly happy with the platform. I understand you work quite closely with them setting that up, Adam.
Yeah, and between they hadn't used the ClickHouse, or they had used the ClickHouse, so they were already familiar with that. And then to add in our easy to use visualization tool so they can get that information to their customers, they were very impressed with that.
Yeah, their head of sort of product was very excited about being able to embed the dashboards all over the place.
Yep. So with that, we're at the bottom of the hour. So we'll stick around for a few minutes if we have any other questions. Go ahead and join our DoubleCloud Slack, double-cloud.slack.com. More of a technical audience there. It's more for, getting that community around our platform and the components of our platform, not necessarily, sales or marketing. And, I don't even think, James, you're not in there, are you?
Don't know. We're not allowed. It's just for the tech people. So it literally is. We're trying to build an open source community around this, and it very much is just come talk tech. Mostly, I think I'm not in there because I wouldn't understand a thing you're saying. But we don't want sales and marketing there. We don't want We just want you to be able to come and talk about your problems with people that intrinsically understand them and actually enjoy solving them for you.
Good deal.
So just answering a couple of questions. Can you discuss the trade-offs between using 3D visualizations versus 2D visualizations?
Yeah, I think some of the tools out there try to go too fancy with the 3D visualizations. If you're dashboarding on your laptop or even a screen in your office that you walk by every day, you're probably okay with sticking with 2D dashboards. I think if you want to get fancy and have a marquee out on the street, maybe let's make it prettied up and use those 3Ds. Don't get hung up around the 2D, 3D. If you find a cool tool out there that uses 3D, sure, ping it to me. Let me know. I want to see it. But stick with what your audience knows, and I think you'll be successful in building your dashboards.
Okay, and the last question we've had in is there any common mistakes when building their dashboard visualizations that people should be avoiding?
I think people try to go, add too much color, too many details, too many charts, on a single dashboard. Find what are those relevant business metrics that you need to track and put those on a dashboard. Don't add a bunch of extra information that just bogs the dashboard down. Not necessarily in terms of speed, but just bogs the mind down when you're trying to okay, what are the key takeaways that I need to take away from this dashboard and stick to that.
Keep it relevant or keep it high level.
Keep it relevant. I don't know, high level, depends on your dashboard. And maybe somebody needs to go deep into something, but definitely keep it relevant and at a glance. It should be accessible to any of your end users at a glance.
Excellent, thank you. Is there any other questions from anyone? Otherwise, we can wrap up.
I don't see any more, James. So
no, I don't. So thanks for
attending the webinar.
And yet we'll hopefully see you on the next one. Or if you want to head to our YouTube channel at DoubleCloud, there's all of Adam's previous webinars that you can go through, which are on a variety of different subjects. Oh, and we have just had one last question in. Yep. You will have access to this recording. We'll have to sort of edit it slightly. It'll be uploaded to YouTube and then sent out to everyone. So thank you very much.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, James.
Thanks.